My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm here once again with Taran Champagne.
Hey, Jeff.
And what I want to ask you about, Taran, is that I saw the transcript of you questioning family law attorney Daryl Weinman regarding the reasonableness of her attorney fees. And those, to me, honestly, when I saw what you did, first off, I think you did a tremendous job. But I think that there are a lot of unethical things that are taking place there. In fact, I'm still going to be working on the FTC complaint. But anyway, so tell me, how did you come up with a strategy? How did you know to ask the questions that you did about the reasonableness of her attorney fees?
So first of all, I want to note that when I was in elementary school, we learned what was called the 5-paragraph essay.
Okay.
I don't know if you learned that, but basically you start with your thesis. I think they used another term when I was that young, but you start with your thesis, and then you have 3 points, and those are your separate paragraphs that you use to make your point.
Right.
And then you wrap it all up, you put a ribbon on it, and it's complete.
Right.
So in this case, let's talk about this.
Okay.
So my attorney's fees are $525 an hour.
Okay.
That's going to be your thesis.
Okay.
Your points that I believe were made that, well, I say they're $525 an hour. My second point is other attorneys that are not here to testify and no cost survey is here, so essentially hearsay, say it's $525 an hour.
Right.
And I'm an expert because I say I'm an expert, and then my thesis is you should pay me $525 an hour for services.
I think you're missing a point though too, because she said, trust me on how much time I put in.
Yes, so trust me, I did this work, and my closing statement is, you need to pay me, there's no evidence, there's no nothing, and I say it's right. Now, if I were a teacher...
And by the way, she was not sworn under oath either, because the judge did not have her swear in, even though she's
an officer of the court.
She was an officer of the court, and everybody knows the officer of the court can never lie, never commit perjury, never mislead, never deceive. But the judge actually said, no, you have to swear in, but she doesn't have to because she's an officer of the court. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So anyways, back to my point about elementary school students learning the 5-paragraph essay. If I were a teacher grading any student who made those arguments like that, I would fail them. F. Try again.
Yeah.
Any sort of persuasion and argument is not made simply just by asserting that, well, I just know, right? Yeah. You need to be able to look at it and determine it. And you need to back your information up with data, information. And I think we've spoken quite a bit about that today. Right. So what guides attorneys in their attorney's fees? So there is the disciplinary rules of professional conduct, or basically the code of ethics for attorneys. And in that code of ethics for attorneys, it outlines some kind of, guidelines that attorneys are supposed to set for their attorney's fees. So contained within that is basically you're going to factor in the novelty of the questions asked. You're going to factor in reputation. You're gonna put a bunch of things in there that you're going to factor in. Right. Now, I think that what's really clear from there, also you need to have a methodology. Right. And I want to state for anybody out there in viewer land that a methodology is something that's duplicatable. If I say 9 divided by 3 is 3, I can't just assert that. That's not a methodology. Well, it's 9 divided by 3 because I say it is. No, you need to take your pennies out like you did when you were learning multiplication and be like, all right, I got 9 pennies here. 1, 2, 3. All right, it's 3. Yeah,
and it's always 3.
Yeah. If it is not duplicatable, it is not a methodology. Okay. Plain and simple. Okay. So what anybody needs to do, especially if you're going pro se like I was at the time, you need to challenge them on how they came to their conclusions. So some of the things I did while I was challenging them was, one, I wanted to ask, do I have a contract with you?
That was the first question. That was beautiful.
So you could assume a reasonableness of a fee if you have come to an agreement that you have a contract with them. I said, Jeff Morgan, you make yourself a mighty fine YouTube video. I'm going to pay you $1,000. Anybody out there? I'm going to pay you $1,000 for a mighty fine YouTube video. Okay? And you say, that sounds reasonable. And I would say, now we've come to an accord, and your fees are reasonable because both parties have agreed that they're reasonable.
Right. I would be shocked, but I thank you for being so reasonable with me.
So we have that reasonableness in
right.
the nature that you have established a contract with somebody else.
Right, right.
Now, once again, they can say, well, what is the customary fee for the attorneys in the local area?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would consider when doing this is that you not collude with others and engage in price fixing, which is a violation of anti-competition laws, but send out a cost survey. Go to those people and ask them, how much are you paying? That way you do an independent thing. You're
right.
not meeting with them. You're not saying, hey, we're
right.
all going to make them pay $5.25 an hour. Just
right.
That's the quiet part. We can't say it out loud.
Right, right.
Okay, so that's establishing a cost survey.
Right.
Now, when you're doing a cost survey, how are you gonna calculate that price? My recommendation would be to use the median
mm-hmm.
of it. Now, key things to keep in mind when you're doing a cost survey, right? There's and I'm no statistician or a data expert,
mm-hmm.
but I remember hearing this term, the regression to the mean.
Mm-hmm.
So the greater
mm-hmm.
your data set is, it's all going to come towards the center. It's kind of like when you did that analysis of custody in Texas, if you could be with the mom or the dad and you flipped a penny, right?
300,000 times, there was a difference of 22.
Mm-hmm. So really close. It wasn't ending up with 91%
right.
heads.
Right, right.
And, you know.
In fact, the larger the number was, the closer it came toward the mean. What you're talking about, the regression toward the mean.
Mm-hmm. So same thing with this, with the attorney's fees. Theoretically, if they have a larger sample size, it should be able to get them towards a median.
Mm-hmm.
That way, and a median is more appropriate because now you're throwing out the outliers. So
right.
maybe there is that $525 an hour attorney,
mm-hmm.
and then maybe there's a $100 an attorney, and that's going to throw out those outliers. Mm-hmm. Maybe everybody falls in within 300. Now, key thing with that is, where's your evidence to back that up?
Mm-hmm.
I can assert many things.
Mm-hmm.
I can assert that I'm 6 feet tall. I can assure you it's not true, though.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say it. I can say it on my Tinder profile.
Right, exactly, exactly.
But just because you say something doesn't make it true.
Right.
So that was one of the questions that I asked. Where's your cost survey?
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, that cost survey was not entered into evidence.
Right. But trust me.
Yeah, but trust me. Then again, the other thing is, do you have any attorneys to speak to the reasonableness of your fees?
Nope.
Nothing. So once again, trust me, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, an officer of the court, no less.
Yeah, it's not required to swear in. So there's that. You also need to look, when you're looking at any sort of data, when was that data compiled?
Mm-hmm.
So you ask, what is the source of your data? For example, if you're saying that, maybe your fees were, maybe you did your cost survey in 2009 and the average hourly salary was $300 an hour in your area. Well, especially in the past year, we've had quite a bit of inflation, so that might not be appropriate at this time. Another thing they need to be...
Or on the other hand, you had people that I was reading this one article from this attorney that said during COVID, this attorney was very upset because in the last 57 days, he only had 3 new clients. So he was suffering in his business. So maybe he would have to reduce his rate. So anyway, go ahead.
That's his problem.
Yeah,
not mine.
I know.
So there's that. So you look at kind of the underlying data that they have.
Yeah.
Do they have a cost survey? How did they come to their conclusion?
Mm-hmm.
Another one of the questions that I asked was, how did your reputation affect the outcome of this? Now, according to Daryl Weinman, reputation wouldn't necessarily have an effect. Yet in the rules of professional conduct for the attorneys, I believe that the effect of the reputation is on that.
I think you're right, but
just some other things that you're asking. You want to ask for reasonableness. Ask them, do they have any evidence that they actually did what they said they did?
Right.
we live in an age now where you can use things like keystroke loggers and video. It's not that hard.
Right, right.
Trust me, though, I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I play one on TV.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there was also the idea that she mentioned about the novelty of the case. And I thought that was quite interesting because, as you mentioned previously, in 91% of the cases, or 91, 92, 93, whatever, there is a predetermined outcome. We already know what it is. Statistically speaking, if you take a look at the Attorney General's data, I mean, 92, 93% of the time.
Yeah, but at least according to Daryl Weinman, there's not a bias.
Yeah, there's no bias. But then she also said, too, the novelty of the case. Well, to me, I'm saying, okay, but you're not even a professional attorney, so the novelty, you know, they should be very easily dismissed because you obviously don't know the law. You're just an uneducated person. But she's charging more because of the novelty of the case. That's the way that I took her. Maybe I'm mistaken, but that's the way that I took her.
You know, honestly, somebody should relish a challenge. Somebody should relish new ideas.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a friend about, you know, the situation. And one of the remarks he had made was, well, look at Brown versus the Board of Education.
Right, right.
That was novel.
Yeah.
Separate but equal was the law of the land.
Yeah.
And yet, that little girl, her family wanted her to go to the white school.
Yep.
And that was certainly novel.
Yeah, yeah.
And people need to have the stones to stand up and say, this is wrong, and it needs
Right.
to be changed.
Separate but equal would definitely apply right in your case, too. The equal part, but equal.
No. But separate, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. What I'm talking about before the court.
Yeah.
That you're equal, not that there's a custodial and a non-custodial. That's what I meant.
Yes, so
Yeah.
so the notion is, in Texas, allegedly,
Yeah,
gender is not supposed to be considered when assigning custody.
yeah.
You know, I believe there is case law about it that basically says, you know, the law may be written as unbiased, but in practice it can be biased. And in this case, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
It's biased, yeah.
It's absolutely biased.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so going back to the whole reasonableness of the billing, we talked about the different things that you mentioned. The last thing, when I got off on it, was the novelty of the case. Were there other factors as well that you were looking at?
So what I did was, you know, one of the things that they were like was, well, they said the attorneys set their fees in accordance with, you know, the other family law attorneys that they were price fixing with.
They didn't say price fixing, however, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, they didn't say price fixing. It is my opinion.
Yes.
That they are engaging in price fixing.
Right.
But they also, so I countered with that. There is a website known as the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Right.
And what it does is it provides a breakdown of information relating to various salary amounts that you can receive in localities. And in this case, I used the average salary for attorneys in the Austin, Round Rock Metroplex area. And really, it was in the 50s. It was like $55 bucks.
I think it was 67, but you're right. It was nothing, and that was the median salary, I believe, wasn't it? Or was that the what was it again?
I think it was the median of there. So you know, it can go higher, it can go lower.
But basically, she was almost 8 to 10 times higher than that figure.
Yes.
And that's a reasonable fee, in her opinion.
In her opinion, it's reasonable. In my opinion, it's
not.
It's very unreasonable.
And what I don't like about this whole system as well, because she was stating that you should pay the attorney fees.
Yeah, I don't have a contract with her.
You don't have a contract with her, but what that also means too is that your opponent can get the highest priced attorney out there and soak you with all of those fees. And if price does indicate the effectiveness of an attorney, it will help that person win the case, and you get stuck with a bigger bill. And again, you have no contract, so you're actually paying to lose, in a sense.
Exactly. And you know, many people understand this, and there are good family law attorneys out there.
Right.
There are a couple out there, not many.
Right.
but there are a couple, and I'm pretty certain anybody who's watching can already identify the good ones.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, you are being forced to pay for your opposition to abuse you, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's abuse.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what it was. Daryl Weinman was abusing you. Probably still is, but anyway.
Yeah. You know, so it's out there. You need to challenge them, how they came to their conclusions.
Yeah.
I think we established that a methodology is duplicatable.
Right.
If you are, I believe, as Daryl Weinman put it, it's in my head.
Yes.
That's not a methodology.
No, it's not. But then she also talked about overhead. And when I was listening to what her responses were, both about her fees and then her the paralegal's fees, didn't they both have overhead in? Was she double dipping on the overhead?
You know, that's actually a good question. And, you know, I wasn't quick to the draw on that. What is the attorney's fee? And I think that's a perfect question for somebody who goes looking at this in the future. What is the attorney's fee and what is the overhead?
Right.
Can they separate that?
Right.
You know, there was a lot of mincing of words about fees versus salary. She wanted to dance around that.
Oh, very much, because, yeah.
So
I don't think she'd ever face questions quite like that from somebody like you.
well, it's novel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So
not.
that's why she has to charge a higher fee.
Well, you know, I personally think she should pay me because I'm giving her an education.
Right.
Obviously, law school did not prepare her for these questions.
Right, right.
Nor have her 30 years in practice prepared her for these questions.
Right.
Or however long she's been practicing. But, so you got to ask, where is the attorney fee?
Yeah.
Because she danced around that and mentioned overhead and other things like that.
Right.
So am I paying for your rent?
Yeah.
What am I exactly paying for?
And
what?
yeah, especially when she was coming by Zoom. I mean, I don't even know if she was coming from her office, if she's coming from home. And I mean, there was just a whole lot of things. So, am I not paying your rent, perhaps? I mean, it just...
Your electricity bill, gas bill.
My photocopier that I just bought.
Well, you don't buy photocopiers anymore.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
You have a perpetual stream of business. Xerox will come and repo your copier if you don't pay the rental.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's a great question for anybody to ask, where is the attorney fee? Give me a breakdown of your salary,
Yeah.
what your hourly rate is, and point to the attorney fee portion of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And for those of you in viewerland, that's my gift to you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point, though, because there was a lot of fluff in there that you were paying for, evidently.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so, and again, the issue about double dipping,
Mm-hmm.
I thought to
Well,
myself...
the paralegal.
Right.
She was billing for the paralegal, and she noted once again that that's not what she pays her paralegal.
Right.
So is she taking a cut off the top of it?
Right.
Which I don't know.
Right. I mean, because I believe that the statistic you gave was in the mid-20s or
Yeah.
high 20s or something like that.
Something like
versus
that.
versus $195 an hour that you were paying, that she wanted
Woo!
to... Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
That's expensive. But once again, that's not her salary.
Right.
That's her hourly rate.
Right.
So what is the actual fee?
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody's going to challenge... well, let me ask you this final question here. How did you learn to do this? I mean, is there something in your background that you had some type of special skills that you acquired?
I mean, I think the skills of analysis and looking at it, right? So
Mhm.
Once again, the idea of what is a methodology.
Mhm.
How do you come and justify it? It goes back to what I said earlier, that 5-paragraph essay you learn as a kid. You go and read their rules of professional conduct, their
Mhm.
attorneys' guidelines or whatever, how they come up with their fees,
Mhm.
and you look at it and you say, how do you prove each one of these points?
Right.
And ask them on it, because I can assure you, once again, if that was the 5-paragraph essay written by a 5th grader, I would have failed them.
Yeah. So anyway, it was very educational. I enjoyed it. I think the people who saw it enjoyed it. And there's a lot...
Once again, nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. They only saw the transcript.
They saw the transcript, absolutely. But yeah, absolutely. But anyway, that's what I meant to say as far as the transcripts are concerned. But anyway, it was very educational, and I appreciated you doing all of that stuff. And
hopefully, some of you all go out and apply this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's make it work. Let's make things more novel.
Yeah. And Well, let me just ask one final question. Should you be able to bill them? Because you mentioned the fact that you were giving her free education.
I absolutely think I should.
Okay.
She should pay me.
Yeah.
All that novelty? Hey, never faced that.